And we are live. Welcome to the Detective Diaries. I am your host, Greg Lawson. This is a show where I interview strange and interesting people I find along my paranormal journey. Last week we interviewed Nikki Folsom. Nikki is the author of The Haunted Harlequin and is an international lecturer and paranormal explorer and sensitive. And we had fun. I've got to travel all over the world with her. And next Thursday, in 2 days, June 4th, I'm going to have the incomparable, the amazing, the incredible Reverend Tim Shaw on this broadcast. And it's going to be great. If you haven't ever met Tim, you need to come on here and watch and meet him. And if you have met Tim, then you know why you need to come on here and watch. He's a really, really cool guy, interesting guy, and psychic medium. So he does all kinds of things all across the world, and is involved in a lot of investigations and that sort of stuff. So I asked Gypsy Jewels. She is a pretty much of an expert in metal detecting, and she has a YouTube channel called Zero Discrimination. I have relied on her several times on different investigations to bring her in to discover supportive evidence for whatever the legend is, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Don't delay anymore, and let's bring Gypsy into the conversation. Hey, Gypsy, good to see you.
Hi. Good to see you, Greg. It's been a while.
It has been a while. You know, we talked earlier today, and I said that I would probably have a beer, but apparently I'm on the water because.
Oh, you've been a bad boy?
Yeah, all the craziness that's going on in the world, and now I'm kind of on call, sort of. I'm on call back.
Gotcha, yeah.
It would be great to have a couple of beers while I'm talking with you, and then it wouldn't be good if I got called out. So I don't want to have that happen. I understand you're going to be
Right.
partaking in some adult beverage. Uh-oh, you're lagging.
I have a little sangria.
Is it? You got?
Sorry, I kicked my kids off the internet, so I don't know if that's interfering or what.
Don't worry about it. It happens. So so you and I met each other about 5 years ago, right?
Right. I believe it was when I was working at Pino's Palette, and we had one of our open studios, and you and your wife, and I think it was your mother came in.
Yeah, I actually have some good pictures of that.
Sure did. And that was a lot of fun. I remember you painted Babadook.
Yeah. For those of you who are watching, Babadook is a movie that you must see at least one time, if nothing else, just to get you angry that you wasted that amount of time to watch it.
Right.
But anyway, so anybody that is out there watching the broadcast, please go to the comments below and tell us where you're watching from. That gives us an idea of how far we're getting out there, how far our reach is. Also, if you want to ask any questions or anything, do that. It would be even cooler if you would share this broadcast. It would help me and the Detective Diaries out a lot. So, you know, when I found out that you were doing metal detecting, or you do metal detecting, it really interests me because at the time I was a sergeant over an underwater recovery team, and we are tasked to go in the water and find, you know, guns and weapons and just all kinds of stuff, and along with bodies as far as drowning recovery. And you know, you were the first person that I met that you really knew what you were talking about, because I've talked to people who kind of are hobbyist metal detector type people, but you've been doing this for a while, and you have quite a bit of credibility behind you. Is the
I've been doing it now for almost 22 years, getting close to 22 years, Mark. And it's been interesting, and it's led me all over to different places. And I almost had a chance to go to Italy right before Corona hit. And I was really disappointed that I didn't get to go. But hopefully, after all this chaos clears, I'll be able to travel again and go to some places like that. I know that you've been all over. You've been to Ireland. You've been to some of those castles and got to explore some of that. I can only daydream about metal detecting one of those places someday.
oh, could you imagine what you could find in a castle that's been there for 800 years? Just imagine the amount of stuff that is there is just crazy. So you and I'm going to throw up a photo here. I think the first time I had contacted you,
Okay.
and said, hey, I want to go out and do some detecting. And we went out to a bridge that is on the San Gabriel River, just northeast of Georgetown, right? I think
That was a lot of fun. That bridge was really gorgeous. You got some great photos that day. You helped me video for a video. I can't remember who found the horseshoe, but I love finding the lucky horseshoes. But I remember we metal detected in the water and I found a killer large. I can't even remember what fossil it was. Do you remember?
I think it was an animite. One of the it was a round one, kind of a big flat one.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There's that. That
Yeah, it was a
river.
big one.
That river is pretty amazing. It's it's got that limestone bottom to it, so it's basically the bottom of the ocean. 500,000 years ago, or however long ago it was an ocean. And there's all kinds of little bones and fish things and plants and stuff all pressed into that limestone down there. It's pretty amazing. But I told you, when we spoke earlier, I told you that I was going to go and grab that axe head. That was one of the amazing things that we found while we were at this bridge. Is I found an axe head in the water. Now, when you think about, okay, somebody lost a tool, an axe in the water, no big deal. The funny thing is I found axe heads in multiple locations near bridges. The cop in me tells me that the suspect took the murder weapon, went to the bridge, and threw it off into the water. That's how I figure it out. Because it would be
right.
If you only found one on 20 bridges, that's one thing, right? Okay, you found one. But if I find four on, between 7 bridges, there's something else going on there, It's weird.
Right. True. It's interesting around bridges. I've been doing this a long time, and that it is a great place for people to just drive across, toss whatever, if it was a murder weapon, guns, knives, axes, all kinds of things, and just toss it right over and be in that area. Another thing that I do is magnet fishing, and magnet fishing around bridges is a great way to recover some of those type of items like what you've recovered in your profession for all these years. It's sad to think of it from that perspective. There is other things possibilities that axe head could have gotten there.
Sure.
It might not have been a murder weapon, but at the same time, it does leave one to speculate. Definitely.
Right. Yeah. Because it could have been a tool when they were building the bridge because you think about when they're building the bridge, they have all kinds of tools that they're working with. So it could have very well been a tool at the bridge that, they accidentally dropped in the water. But, the investigator in me, the detective in me is like, yeah, I wonder if this is involved in some sort of crime or whatever. So, yeah. And, the yogurt shop murders here in Austin back in the 90s, where several girls got killed and burned inside of a local yogurt shop. Several years after that, dive teams were called out to the Pennybacker Bridge. That's the bridge on Loop 360 that goes across Lake Austin. It's a pretty big bridge. And they dove under that bridge looking for a particular piece of evidence. The problem is we found over 30 knives. I want to say it was 17 guns. We found a motorcycle that was stolen. We found a safe that had been stolen in the 1970s from a state building downtown and was cracked and was dumped out there. And all of that was over maybe a 2-week period. And so that there's a whole bunch of stuff we also missed. And but any gun that's being thrown off a bridge, that's usually, it's either stolen or it was involved in a crime or it killed somebody, one of the three. So anyway, that was a lot of fun.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah. For those of you who have...
I found...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. This past week, I found my first partial gun, but it dates way back to around 1851. It's an old revolver, Civil War era. I'm trying to remember what I would have to look real quick.
I think it was a Colt.
But
was it a Colt?
Colt. It was a Colt. Yeah, I was really excited about that find. It's been something I've been wanting to find for a while. Just kind of glad it wasn't a newer gun that could have been a murder weapon.
Right.
Although that gun could have murdered someone, in the Civil War. So you just never.
You never know, right? The when I was a kid, you there?
Sorry, you were disappeared for a moment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, I don't know what our connection is doing something weird, but I'm hard lined in, so I'm not sure what the deal is. When I was a kid, I was near a old quarry, and there was a foundation of an old house that would have been a pier and beam house with limestone foundation around it. And I found a rusted out old pistol, and I kept it for a while and played with it like a gun or whatever. And then I lost it. I don't know what the heck happened to it. So those things are out there if you're paying attention, for sure. Now, for those of you who just tuned in, got a few people that just tuned in. You're listening to the Detective Diaries. It's Greg Lawson and Gypsy Jewels with Zero Discrimination Metal Detecting. And we're talking about metal detecting, but we're also talking about paranormal stuff. So let me bring this in. Let's see if I can get this. Boom. So for those of you who don't know any history about Belton, Texas, Belton has been around for a while. And in the 1870s, there were several people in this jail. The picture of this house right here is, it's now a private residence. And this private residence wants to be, they want everybody to leave them alone because paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, all that stuff always come by there and do different stuff. And so I tried to respect the new owner very much and not bother her, but she did allow me to go in and look around the inside. She was very, very gracious, very nice to do that. And it was pretty amazing because as you're looking at that house, it used to be a Well, I mean, it's a block limestone house that is now painted over, and it was the jail. So when you walked in the door, there was an actual staircase, and you could go upstairs to two sets of cells, and then there was two sets of cells downstairs. There was a privacy fence, a wooden privacy fence that went around the whole building. And in the 1870s, a group of vigilantes, basically, who thought that they were doing God's work, rode in there and forced their way into the jail because there was just one jailer there. And they killed everybody in the jail, killed them all. And they took them and they drug them out the back door and laid them right outside the back within the fence of the perimeter fence of the jail, and stacked those bodies. And those bodies stayed there for a day. And then townsfolk finally came over there and decided they would go ahead and bury them. So those of you who love history and like paranormal stuff, Belton County Jail Massacre, look it up. It's really, really cool. So in doing that, I thought, how cool would it be is if I could get an expert that knows how to detect metal and to go into that back area and try to find some bullet slugs. That would be really interesting. Or coins, or just anything, old keys, stuff that you would normally find, in around a setting like that. The problem is they did a modification to the jail to turn it into a house. They built a big kitchen on the back of it, which put a concrete slab where the bodies were laying. So Gypsy and I weren't able to go in there and detect that, but we detected other stuff. And I'd like for you to elaborate on that whole thing, please.
Sure. So yeah, that was quite the adventure. I really appreciated Greg inviting me over there, and he gave me the history background, and I found it fascinating. And it's always neat to be able to connect an object to possibly where you're metal detecting. And there is a big slope on the backside of the jailhouse, and it kind of slopes down and backs up into a creek. Now, you've got to remember, originally, before the building that was built, we later found out upon a little bit of digging into the history that before that building was built, there was even a log cabin that was a jailhouse before then. So that was really fascinating. And so we dug horseshoes back there. We started digging all kinds of old wagon pieces. I dug a silver spoon that dated back to the 1800s. And it's interesting to think, how did that silver spoon get there? Did it go to, who did it belong to? Because that the people that were jailed there probably didn't eat out of a silver spoon.
Right.
It's interesting to think, who used that spoon before then. But one of my favorite finds that we found, do you remember, it was a luggage, what was it? The luggage tag.
Right.
And there is a train not all that far from there. And you got to put yourself back in the history and kind of, people traveled by train or by horse. And think about someone coming into town and probably going down to the creek, bringing their horse to get the water. Maybe they just came from the train station trying to find a place, and that luggage tag came off somehow. But it was really neat. There is a video of Greg and I metal detecting and some of our finds that we found on that journey, on that adventure, on my YouTube channel. I can't remember the title. It may be Belton Jailhouse or 1800s Jailhouse. So be sure and check that out on my YouTube channel. It would be probably over a year ago when we detected that, but it was
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It was amazing. I learned so much from you. I'm used to working a crime scene. I'm used to either doing the hands-on or at least supervising, looking for something, whether we're doing a police call sweep kind of thing, or whether we're working sections and gridding things off and everything. So it was it was fun to watch your patience. So nowadays people want things to happen so quickly.
Right.
It takes a whole lot of patience when we're doing this kind of stuff. Hey, Carl Hutchinson from the United Kingdom is on. Thanks, Carl, for watching. That's awesome.
Awesome.
And it's also Carrie Hull's birthday, apparently. Happy birthday, Carrie.
New Hampshire, there's some good history there.
Yeah, there's plenty of history there. So when we were there digging, remember, I kept digging this one spot. I kept hitting something. We couldn't figure out what it was. We kept hitting. And then what did you find that we finally figured out it was a stove?
Yeah, I think that was part of an old wood burning stove that we had found. And you think about it, it probably went to either the old cabin, jailhouse cabin, or it might have been later put into that home, or taken out of the cabin, put into that home. So I thought that was pretty neat.
It was really old. And I when I was digging, I'm like, wow, this sandy loam is turning into this black dirt. And I'm digging, and I smell of it. I'm like, oh, it's soot. It's burnt wood and stuff. Digging. All of a sudden, there's the handle to the wood stove, and it was just buried back there. It's an old iron cast wood stove. So that, in my mind, like you said, when they built that particular structure, the limestone jail.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, there was a log cabin there,
right,
as a jail. So I'm just gonna throw in, yeah, I bet it was the stove for that log cabin. And when they decided to build the new jail, they raised the log cabin and pushed the stove off that slope you're talking about.
Probably.
And there you go. So yeah, that jail is. I wish I had some other pictures of it around the back side. And I wish I had some original pictures of it before it got painted. And you see that there's a historical marker sign in front of it. But that was pretty amazing. I really, really enjoyed working with you up there. And I learned a lot just from the whole metal detecting thing.
It really was. We've been on a few adventures together.
Yeah.
Remember the San Gabriel River, and you took me to the old cemetery, the historical markers, and we went up the river for quite an adventure. And we were looking for remnants, or where maybe old Spanish missions might have been. So that was quite the fun adventure as well.
Yeah, that was a good. Lee Parsley in Rockdale, Texas hooked us up with that. We went out, and he got his kayaks out and took us in his vehicle. We went way upstream, and he put us in the water there. And man, it was a long trek. We went a long way.
We really did. And we only got to the metal detect for just a short while. But a lot of it was just kind of getting familiar with the area, doing some exploring and learning about the history. And you had some great historical history on a lot of that you'd done a lot of research on, that I found fascinating.
Yeah, that whole area. So if you look at the maps from prior to the Texas Republic, all the maps were in Spanish, and they were all, Hispanic surnames. And the San Gabriel River was called the San Xavier River.
Right.
And the Brushy Creek, what we call the Brushy Creek now, was called the Brook of the Souls in Spanish. And I love it, the Brook of the Souls. And they called it that because the priests at the mission would take the Indian neophytes down and baptize them in the Brook of the Souls, where the San Gabriel and the Brushy Creek met. And so that's where we went. We went swimming, or I went swimming. You went detective.
We did. It was so much fun.
And it was amazing. We didn't see any snakes while we were out there. That was pretty amazing.
Oh, the guy that took us, remember what I found fascinating is not only you find everything from the kind of artifacts we were looking for, but he found a really neat fossil prior to when we were there, a mammoth tooth.
Yeah. And he's found a full top of a buffalo skull since then.
Oh,
the horns,
really?
the whole front. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
See that.
Yeah. So there's obviously, he lives right near that big sandbar, and there's obviously a lot of stuff going on. And Kathy Buhorn. Hey, Kathy, thanks for chiming in. Kathy and I explored the San Gabriel River in 1981 or 1980. Yeah. Yeah, Kathy, good to see you on there. Thank you, Kathy. For those of you who have just turned in, we're talking with Gypsy Jewels with Zero Discrimination Metal Detecting. You're listening to the Paranormal Detective in Detective Diaries. If you haven't already checked in, please comment down in the comments below. And if you can share this broadcast, man, it helps out a whole lot when you do that. If you like and share the broadcast, it's really cool. So, let's see what else. What else we on the because we haven't been back to the Belton jail.
No, we haven't gone back. I went back to that creek in Metal Detective with a friend in the creek. I found some interesting stuff, but not really behind the jail. I'd like to go back. It's summertime. I love when it gets really hot. It's a great way to cool off. So if you're up for an adventure, it's not that far from us.
Well, and you taught me a lot as far as, when you were scouting the creek, you went up and down the creek to try to figure out what other old buildings are along that creek. And we found that one old church. So you can infer that during Sunday or after Sunday service, people are running around, kids are playing down by the water and doing that stuff. And that's a great place to go look for maybe coins or other items that people might have lost down there. So
definitely.
And you were teaching me how the coins will get down in between the cracks in there. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, let's move on to why I really brought you on Detective Diaries show.
All right. Ooh.
Let's talk about Haunted Hill House for a minute. For those of you who don't know, Haunted Hill House is in Mineral Wells, Texas. It's way it's about 3-4 hour drive for me, but it's about an hour and a half or so out of Fort Worth, west of Fort Worth. It's an amazing little situation that they have out there. They used to have a military base out there, and there's also a huge hotel. The Baker Hotel is fantastic, incredibly large hotel, and it's been shut down since I think the 70s or 80s. I can't remember which, but it's been shut down a while, and they've been trying to do a renovation on it. But the interesting thing is it was around during Prohibition, and Haunted Hill House is 1 block away from there. And there was always these legends and these stories about the Haunted Hill House being a brothel and being a speakeasy, and that's where you could get alcohol. And it was just debauchery and stuff during Prohibition. And the rich folk that stayed at the Baker Hotel, the rich men primarily, would then frequent over to Haunted Hill House. And that's kind of where I come in as a paranormal investigator. Is you have a set of stories of things that have happened, and then I sit there and go, okay, what kind of evidence, whether it be testimony, physical evidence, circumstantial evidence, can I come up with that would support those types of things? And so when I went up there, I decided that I would then use metal detecting, because I was thinking, what could I find at a brothel that would be metal that might, indicate that there was a brothel. But if there was there are certain undergarments that have metal things in them that I might be able to pick up, that sort of stuff. So I decided to go out there. When I went out, I found a couple of interesting things. One, I found a folding knife that was a old school steel folding knife, it's probably pretty old. Not sure who it was from, but it was in pretty good shape. And I found it in about 3 inches of soil, I guess. I found a pretty modern contemporary woman's bracelet and found a couple of other things. But my whole point is what I was trying to do is I was trying to corroborate any kind of evidence to some of the legends of Hill House, because Hill House has some crazy, crazy stories, apparitions, demons, shadow people, just all kinds of stuff. And so that's when I reached out to you and said, hey, what do you think? Mm-hmm. So you ended up going up there, and the first time you went up there, so what would you do?
So the very first time, the owners, Catherine and Sonny, they focused a lot of sharing the history of Haunted Hill House. They gave me a tour and all of that. And then finally, out back, they wanted me to focus kind of near where you had done some metal detecting. And I did a little metal detecting around there. And one of my very first finds turned out to be a 3 Merry Widows condom tin.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. So a little history behind that. 3 Merry Widows, they're the 3 widows that came up with this idea to make reusable condoms. And back in the day, I can't remember how far back, but I know at least the 20s. So again, it puts us there in that time frame of when, we think that it was a brothel before and after. And, it fits with what might have went on there. And I do have a recent video that I put up, and some of the footage is from 2 years ago, from my first time out there. And then a second time I went, and she had asked me, she was doing a fundraiser for a battered women shelter. And I helped out with that, gave some people some kind of how to use a metal detector. They got to use a metal detector for the first time, and they found some items, and some of those items they got to keep, and then some of them were donated to the little museum there at Haunted Hill House. And all the items that I found were donated to, the owner. So they are at Haunted Hill House. You can go there and take a tour and see them.
Yeah, and as well, or mine, I believe she has the knife still, and that, and so, and that's the thing. So when I was doing the research on that, there is written research to support the brothel. It's amazing, that front room. Did you go into the fireplace of the front room?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
That is
so you go in this front room and there's a big fireplace, and you think, oh, okay, there's a fireplace. It's not a fireplace. You step in there, you look up, and there is a huge void, a big empty area. And that's where they used to store the liquor. So, it's those things that are supportive of these legends. And that, as a paranormal detective, as a paranormal researcher, that's what I look for. So you have that. You have the death of a young boy that reflects back onto, a ghost that is mischievous, that's there, that like throws pebbles at you and that sort of thing. And You know, how random is that? You find a condom case.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you know, there's just multiple things that are supporting these types of things. And so that's why it's so important that you not only get testimonial evidence from people, you get written evidence from newspapers, you know, if there's any cop stuff, but you get somebody like you that is a real expert in collecting evidence, locating and collecting evidence. It's amazing. And you're the kind of people that I'd rely on.
I would love to travel to some of these places where, you know, you and others investigate and just, you know, detect the yards and detect the property and find these objects that connect to the history behind, you know, some of these investigations. I find it fascinating. And that was a lot of fun being able to metal detect and then connect these objects to the history of the property.
Did you put any videos on your YouTube channel about Hill House?
I did. I recently uploaded one, and it is called just Detecting Haunted Hill House. And it shows my 2 times that I went there. We were exploring kind of up on the hill behind the house where it's East Mountain is what it's called, and kind of went up there a ways, and I found an old airhead up there as well. So I gave them that. That's in the museum as well.
Yeah, that whole area obviously had a lot of activity, both Native American and when all the cowboys moved in there and started, you know, finding these mineral springs that they thought would heal everybody, and you know, invited everybody to Mineral Wells, Texas, to
Did you
bathe and drink the healing waters. Right?
Did you hear what was considered the healing property of this water? Like they later found out and tested the water.
No.
Recently found out it was lithium.
Oh, really?
Exactly. So here they are soaking in this water, and they're like, "Whoa, I feel great!" You know.
Wow. Yeah, they still use lithium today in mental health treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
So that was your first time you went up. What about the second time?
Second time, I ended up going for the fundraiser she had for the women's shelter, and I showed other people how to metal detect, and I ended up staying at the house that night. I really hadn't planned on staying at the house. I am a big chicken when it comes to staying places by myself. I will admit, you know, I hear a noise and I'm like, what's that?
Right.
But, you know, there were about 6 or 7 of us going to be staying in the house that night. And I said, as long as I don't have to stay in a room alone, I'll be fine. Well, I'm sitting in the kitchen, and you know how they have all the TV screens up where all the you can view all the cameras in every room, and they're all in there doing their like paranormal investigation, and you see some, you know, with their little meters, light meters, and all of this different stuff, and they're in each room, and I actually see some orbs on the camera go through some of the doors. And I'm sitting there, you know, just watching this like a TV show. And I'm sitting there in the kitchen. There's all this food. And I'm sitting there snacking on the food. And the next thing I know, I feel there's nobody else in the kitchen with me. And on my shoulder, I feel this tap. Like someone's there tapping on my shoulder. And I look around and I'm like, oh my goodness, something just tapped on my shoulder.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not real into the paranormal. I don't know if I've kind of drug you into this for your expertise or what the deal is, but that's freaky, right?
It was freaky because I had only had a few experiences. I grew up in a religious type background, and I believed, there was no such thing as ghosts, and your spirits go to this waiting place when you die, and there's no such thing as spirits or ghosts or anything like that. So I never was, I didn't really believe in paranormal. My very first paranormal experience was when I was pregnant with my oldest son, and I had laid down on the bed to just take a little rest because when you're pregnant and you're just you tend to rest and sleep more. I wasn't sleeping. I just laid down and I'd just gotten comfy, and I'd kind of laid down on the edge of the bed in a fetal position, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear the front door open and slam, and I'm thinking, Chris, is that you? And no answer. And I'm like, I know that door just opened and slammed, and I know it was shut. And so I lift my head and there's nothing there. And the next thing I know, right at the edge of the bed, I feel this overwhelming presence that something is there in front of me, like an energy. That's the only way I can express it. Like when you feel someone come up behind you or in front of you, that feeling that they're there, that's the way it felt. And then all of a sudden I felt this energy or presence move over my body. And remember, I'm laying there in fetal position, and I feel this presence like it spoons me. Like it was the weirdest feeling. So I'm sitting there frozen. I'm like, my eyes are wide open, and I'm like,
this wasn't in a jail, right? This was in your house.
I'm in jail. This was in my house. And I'm trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. And I'm raising my head and I'm like shaking and frozen, and nothing's there. And the next thing I know, I hear it's almost like a man's deep, faded, all I can describe is like a male voice, and he's weeping.
Wow.
And the next thing I know, it's like he says something to me. It sounded mumbly and like it was in a well. And then the next thing I know, that whole sensation, the feeling of him right behind me, it was gone.
Yeah. So you've had paranormal experiences, but you really haven't been a paranormal investigator.
Paranormal investigator. That was my first paranormal experience, and I was about 25, 26, I was about 29 years old. And
when I went up to Haunted Hill House, I talked with the owners and said, can we work out a deal? If you want me to come up, I can come up, but I need to stay the night by myself, nobody else. And they agreed to it. And I can say that I've stayed in, haunted castles, Dracula's Castle, Hunadora Castle, Warwick Castle, and Leap Castle, or been to Leap Castle. And Hill House creeped me out more than any of those. It's just there is a really weird feeling there. I got a quick question. Wes Coleman. Hey, Wes, man, thanks for watching. And he asked, do we know if anybody's been actually buried on the grounds of Hill House?
Well, after talking to the owner, we are not certain, but there were some murders, and as you know, that are still being investigated, as far as I know, that happened in the town. And so from what I understood, or what I was told by the owner, that there were possibly more than one female girl that was murdered in the town that would have died in the house or behind the house.
Right.
One of the bodies was definitely not ever found.
Well, I know that I whittled my way underneath the foundation there and went in, because it's a pier and beam house, and went all underneath there. But it needs to be metal detected under there. I think that would be Really cool. Say hello to my sister. She's watching. Hey, Sandy, thanks for watching. Wes is watching. Kathy's watching. Joy. Hey, Joy.
Hi, Joy.
She's tuned in. And Lynn has to say something. So I took Saki, my dog, up there with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he had nightmares for months after. She says weeks. No, it's months after that. He did not like being there at all. I've taken him all over the place, and he's kind of a little bit nervous, but no, man, he wanted the hell out of that place. It's there. I don't know what it is about that place, but there's something going on.
Like you said, there's an energy, a vibe there, and with the history behind the house and possible murders happening in the not so distant past, there is just a lot of mystery and just an air about that place. There were some more experiences that I had on through the night, if you're interested in hearing them.
Yeah. What else happened out there?
Okay, so there were several. There was a lady there that came, that she is a psychic medium, and she was giving psychic readings at night. And I wanted to have a reading because I'd never had one. And she was so busy the rest of the night, I didn't get to do that. And then there was another lady that was there, and she didn't consider herself a psychic medium, but she considered herself, she could see things, she could hear things, she could
clairvoyant kind of.
Yes, definitely. Anyway, we kind of hit it off and hung out together, and she was supposed to be staying with me in one of the rooms, because remember I said I did not want to stay in one of the rooms by myself. So they were going to put us in, Catherine was going to have us stay in one of the rooms. And, there's a lot of them. Like I said, I was in the kitchen for a while watching everybody that was there that was wanting to do a paranormal type investigation. And they were all in the different rooms, and I was just hanging out eating. And then later in the evening, several of us went into what they call now, I think, the scratch room.
Yeah.
Where several people have been scratched. And there is what they call the, what do they call it? The box that, I can't think of the name right now. You know,
it's not a Dybbuk box, is it?
Not the name. Anywhere you can, a spirit box.
Oh, spirit box. Oh, okay. I was way off.
So she had a spirit box set up in there. And I go and sit at the table, and where she has a little poker table set up in there, and me and this other lady are in there, and she's just kind of speaking out loud and talking to, because she says she can see and feel and sense the spirits in the room and communicate them, even without the box.
Right.
Well, the box, to me, you can hear some voices very whispery, some clear, some sound male, excuse me, some sound female. It just sounds like this constant chatter, whispering. It's hard to describe. Anyway, there was these different voices coming through, and so she started chatting with one of the spirits there that was a male spirit that supposedly was around the time where it was a brothel, lived about that time period. And she started talking to this spirit, and then all of a sudden he says, now I don't know what's appropriate here, but he says something not very appropriate, and says, "Show me your something another." And
you can use medical terms if you like.
Well, basically he says, show me your boobs, but he wasn't talking. She was the one that was talking to the spirit.
Right.
And she's like, oh, that's not going to happen. And she was just kind of teasing back and forth with the spirit. And I was just watching, what's going on. And I could make out clearly what he was saying. And his was a very low grumble type voice compared to some of the other voices that were coming through. Some voices even were sounded backwards.
Right.
Like when you're playing a record backwards or something.
Right. I've worked with those boxes before, and there's all kinds of stuff that you can come up with.
Yeah.
Wes Coleman asked another question: orbs or dust? So it's a great question.
It is a great question, and like I said, I'd never really experienced a lot of this stuff. I haven't been around. I'm not an investigator or anything like that. But when I saw some of these things that look like orbs on the camera, they would go through a door into another room. So unless a piece of dust particle can go through a door and into another room, you know what I mean?
Right. No, yeah. When I went there and I stayed, I had this incredible. I had 3 separate experiences, and people always ask me, "So, you're a ghost hunter? Do you see ghosts and stuff?" I'm like,
Right.
"No, I haven't, but I've experienced little weird things that keep me interested and keep me going back because I like history. I like that sort of thing."
Right.
Now, here's an internal shot of the staircase. So if you're looking at this photograph, to your right, the door on the right goes into the kitchen. The door in front goes into the living room, and there's a door to the left. And then the staircase that goes up turns to the right and goes all the way up to the top. And I was up there. There's an area there that people have reported experiencing or seeing some sort of evil presence there. And so it was about, I don't know, around midnight or so. I'm up there. I don't have any lights on in the house. I'm not using, night vision or anything like that.
Right.
But I'm using an SLS camera and a couple of other things. And I go up there and I'm doing my thing, and I get some activity on the SLS that was weird. And I finally go, okay, I'm going to go back down. I start walking back down those stairs, and I got hit in the neck with a rock.
Wow. And
that falls into that story of the kid that would throw pebbles at people.
Right.
And I sat there for 30 minutes trying to find that rock. And I, turned on my flashlight and tried to figure out where it could have. It didn't fall on me. It was launched. It hit me. So then I got out a bunch of other equipment and checked all around the doors. I checked, the floor. I checked, if there's a booby trap kind of thing that, because you don't know what
You don't know.
you have to eliminate
Right.
the natural stuff. And I could find nothing. Now,
Okay.
back to what Wes Coleman had asked, dust or orbs. When I was walking up those stairs, I was getting almost to the point to where I was going to step on that landing and turn to the right and continue going up when I saw a bright light come out of that kitchen door. And it went out the front door when I tried to track it and watch it. And that was really creepy.
Wow.
But as an investigator, I have to be full disclosure. About 3 weeks later, I was in my kitchen and I experienced the same thing, this bright light come out and go by. And I tried to track it, couldn't. Call my wife. We went into the doctor, and I have ophthalmic migraines in my eyes, or I had ophthalmic migraines, which causes light flashes.
Right.
So as a competent investigator, you need to know all of
that for sure.
Right. Hey, we're almost done. We've been doing this for 53 minutes, 54 minutes, something like that. So tell everybody where to go to find you, and also elaborate on the fact that, you test out equipment for companies, please.
Okay. So I'm currently testing out a brand new machine that's not even on the market yet, a brand new detector called the Garrett Ace Apex. And there are only about 6 of us people that are testing this product right now. And it is a prototype. and in a few days, I'm going to be sending in my test results. So this is really neat experience for me to be able to test a brand new product that's not even out on the market yet, but will be soon. But I also do sell metal detectors. This is what I do for a living. I metal detect. I go all over and look for metal objects in the ground that relates to our history. And so if you own some property that you would like me to come out and check it out, I'd be happy to. I have extra metal detectors. I'd be glad to show you. I do a lot of that as well.
Or if they're
teaching
paranormal
people how to metal.
investigators, any paranormal investigators out there that, you never know.
Definitely.
So
Yeah,
what's your YouTube, and where can people find you and get in touch with you?
So people can find me at Zero Discrimination YouTube channel. And when I go out metal detecting or on my other adventures, I video as I go along and record what I find and what I'm doing. It's a lot of fun. And so you can find me on there. I'm also on Zero Discrimination Facebook group. So you can find me on there, find me on Instagram, Twitter.
I always enjoy your videos. I sit there and watch your videos. It's like, man, it's really cool. And like you said, it's nice getting out in the nature, especially if you're doing creeks or streams or stuff like that. Because I know you found a lot of stuff around Georgetown, Civil War stuff and other things. So
I have one of my favorite places to metal detect is in the water, in the rivers, creeks, lakes. All of that. So I have waterproof metal detectors too.
And water, yeah.
I also do free lost item recovery. So if you have lost a ring or something that's precious to you, and if it's in a decent amount of miles from me where I can drive to there and search for you, I'd be glad to do that for free. So that's another thing I can do. You can contact me there or my Facebook group as well.
I really, really, really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today, because you and I could probably talk a long time about this stuff, and we need to take another kayak trip also. I think
we definitely do.
I would love to do it kind of in the winter time where there's not so many snakes and not so much.
We need to plan some. Right. One other thing I'd like to mention before we close, which we had you on as a guest, I think it was last Halloween.
Yeah.
On Monday nights on Spreaker.com, I'm a co-host of a podcast with Amanda Digger DeGaz. And be sure and check that out on Spreaker. It's all metal mode. So all metal mode. Just remember metal detecting, all metal mode. You can also find links on my sites as well where I share that. So if you forget.
Thank you so much, Gypsy. And I'd like to have you on again sometimes, because I think that we're going to have more stuff to talk about here in the future.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon. I'll see you on Facebook.
All right.
Anything. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. So that was Gypsy Jewels with Zero Discrimination Metal Detecting. You can find her on YouTube. You can find her on Instagram and Facebook. Let's see. I've been doing the Detective Diaries based on influences and stuff from particular people. Jeff Belanger does the Speakeasy. Same thing. 6 o'clock's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you want to go in and see some amazing guests, he's had Dave Schrader on from the Halser Files. He's had a whole bunch of stuff on there, a whole bunch of people. So if you can look him up. Also, somebody that I really enjoy and I watch quite a bit is Small Town Monsters documentaries done by director Seth Breedlove. If you haven't gone on to check out Small Town Monsters and Seth Breedlove's stuff, I really I encourage you to do so. So this wraps our Detective Diaries today with Gypsy. This Thursday on June 4th, in 2 days, I'm going to have the amazing, the incredible, the really cool Reverend Tim Shaw on. He's a medium, he's a psychic medium, Reverend, and all around cool ghost guy. Please tune in on Thursday. I think it's going to be great. Thanks for watching today. And please like and share this broadcast. You guys are awesome. Hope to see you soon. Here we go. Bye.